Hi, Lexi.
Hi, can
How
you hear
are
me?
you?
Oh, good. Good, how are you?
Good. It's about time to start, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce you a little bit, and I'll let you introduce yourself. And then
Okay.
normally, parents would just pop on, and as you know, this is recorded, so we
Hmm.
put it out there for those who weren't able to make the meeting but want to watch it at their convenience. But thank you so much, Lexi, for agreeing to be with us tonight. I'm really excited to have you here because you seem to be, you always have for me been the champion of FSHD. Way back when my son, he hadn't been diagnosed for long, I saw your videos, and I know you've been a big advocate. You've spoken to the IRC, you've gone to Capitol Hill, you've spoken to FDA, you've done all the things to advocate for this disease and to shine light, especially on the younger folks that have it. So I appreciate you so much. And
Thank you.
I'll just let you introduce yourself a little bit. I know some folks feel like they know you from the videos, but I'll let you introduce yourself and then we'll just get into it, okay?
Yeah. So I'm Lexi Pappas. I'm 31 now, and I was diagnosed with FSHD at around like 12 years old. Not officially, but it runs in my family. So my mom has it, my uncle, my grandpa. Um, I'm a video editor and producer. It's my job. I'm able to work from home, which is really great. And I'm also the New England walk leader, which is awesome. I put on the walk and roll in New England. So I've been doing it since I think 2020 actually was the first year we did it virtually. So nice to meet you all. And I know Tony, we recently talked. So it's cool that thanks all for coming and
Good to see you, Alex.
yeah, hear what I have to say.
So Lexi, before we get into the scapular fusion stuff, I just wanted to ask you a couple questions about um, how you felt being diagnosed at 12. I know it was in your family, so you saw your mom, how you navigated sort of you're just leaving middle school and going into high school, and then you have this amazing career that I'm so jealous of, and how you navigated all that and how you continue to navigate that.
Yeah, so when I was first diagnosed, I mean, I was doing gymnastics since I was little, so since like literally like 3 years old. And then I at around 10 years old is when it kind of started to like affect my gymnastics. Like I wasn't able to do certain things that other girls were able to do. And that's when my mom kind of realized. Then I quit gymnastics. I was doing more sports. I was doing field hockey, lacrosse, and track. And it was tough, when I first found out I had FSHD. I actually don't really remember how I felt about it. I think for me it was my mom. I knew she had it, so it was like, oh well, it's not that bad for her right now, and so maybe it's not a big deal. So like I kind of didn't think it was going to be as big of a deal as it became. um but it was tough. I know in middle school when my scapula started winging, that was like my first symptom. I was definitely trying to hide it a lot. I was, kind of embarrassed just because I felt like I looked different than other people. I think I know a lot of people with FSHD, young people especially, tend to try to hide it because it's, you're around kids who maybe want to bully or there's just things people say online. You don't want to, be a target of that. So it was definitely tough around that time. But for me, it was really just the scapula winging in the beginning. And then as I, got later into high school, I couldn't run anymore. So I had to quit all the sports I was doing. And it was tough because, my peers were doing sports and I wasn't able to do them. So that was definitely tough, just kind of accepting that I wasn't able to do that anymore. Luckily I had my family to kind of talk to about it. I know lots of people don't have any family with FSHD, which makes it really tough because first of all, you might not have ever met anyone with it. And then you also just aren't able to talk to anyone about it unless you, which is great why we have, the FSHD community and, Facebook groups and groups like this where we can actually meet people and talk to people with it. Because I think that's so important. But, then I went on to college and when I was picking a school, I really wanted to make sure it was one that I could walk around easily. At that time, I was still, able to walk long distances. So I wanted to pick a smaller school that I could walk on the campus easily, and I was able to find that, which was great. Towards the end of college, it got worse, and then after college is when it really just started getting very difficult. Not being able to go upstairs easily, falling a lot more often, and I think recently it's been tough on like my mental health just because I often have people asking like or assuming that I'm pregnant, which is tough because I have lordosis, so my back is arched. So I'll all the time get people asking if I'm pregnant. So that's tough, just on like my mental health. So I think a lot of people do deal with that as well. And I think it's just relating to other people in groups that makes it all worth it, to know that I'm not alone and that there's other people dealing with it. And then also doing advocacy has helped me the most just because it's like I have this disease and it sucks, but at least I'm able to help people and spread the word about something and do something impactful. Whereas if I didn't have FSHD, who knows what I would have been able to do that would impact so many people. So it's cool that I'm able to do this. Kind of makes it all worth it, you know.
So when you were choosing a career, did you obviously take FSHD into account? So you're a producer and a video editor. So
Mhm.
when you were choosing that career, you took into account your physical limitations?
Yeah, I mean that's so important because I know there's people who have like gotten later in life and they have a career they can't really do anymore because of it. So I knew that when I was going into college, I, you know, well, first of all, I was going into college, so like there were certain things, not every career I could, you know, would do anyways. The physical labor was something I knew I wouldn't be able to do. So I wasn't going to do anything that required physical activity like that, like I don't know if you were in construction or you were a personal trainer or physical therapist or I don't know, even a doctor, you have to walk around a lot. I knew those things weren't going to be careers that I could do. And maybe I could do them, but would I be able to, retire and do that up till I was, work till I was 65 or whatever. So I did take it into consideration. And luckily I do work from home, which is really great. Not, you can't always find that. So I was very, very lucky. I'm actually can't believe that I'm able to do that, which is awesome. And I do have to travel sometimes for work. So that can be a little tough because we go on long shoot days for video and it can be tough, but for the most part, I'm able to work from home. So it's been great. And I think that's really important to be able to choose something that you can do in the comfort of your home if that's necessary.
So, how did you mentioned that you were in sports and all your friends were in sports, and then you had to drop out. How did you stay socially connected with your friends, or socially connected to a group during high school and college when you couldn't do those physical things?
Um, well, I did get into sailing my freshman year of high school. And that was obviously less physical activity or physical like movement. I didn't have to run, obviously. So I was able, there are sports that you could do. Like I'm actually, obviously Allie knows Kate. She's a young girl with FSHD and she's a coxswain in crew, which, rowing, if never, I'm sure, I think everyone knows crew, but um there's certain things that people could do and she is unable to walk and she's able to do coxswain, which is really cool. And then that's why I chose sailing and something I did do growing up, but I knew I didn't have to run, so I did sailing. I met people there, and then also a good amount of my friends were in sports, so I was able to connect with people who weren't doing sports. And I did some volunteering that helped me like connect with a lot of people. And there's so many other things other than sports that you can do and people that you can meet. So it wasn't a big issue in that way, but it was tough when you grew up doing sports and then you stopped. That's
Right.
the tough part.
And you mentioned advocacy as well, and I know that, I get my son involved, Kate's involved, Maggie gets her kids involved, and a lot of kids either they don't know they have it, or they suspect they have it, or their parents are afraid to get them diagnosed because they think will impact them emotionally or mentally.
Mhm.
But can you talk about the flip side of that, how advocacy empowers you to know that you have it and you can do something a little bit more, especially young folks?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it would have been so cool too to I wish I had done more in high school, because, I know people like Maggie, or Sam, who are both doing, um, really awesome advocacy and being able to, like, travel DC and talk to representatives, and, I mean, that's pretty cool to do in high school, and also would probably look good on your resume going into college, so it's pretty cool. But I think that for me, when I was diagnosed, I just knew that I wanted to help in some way. So I made a documentary about my family and, how it affected us. And I used like my skills and things that I love to spread awareness. And I never thought it would you know, do so much and have so many people see it. And then in turn, I was able to do things like go to DC and organize the walk and rolls and speak in front of the FDA. Like those things were all because of my documentary and because I got involved. And I think it has helped me so much just to be bigger than just who I am, just one person. The fact that I'm able to spread awareness and help so many people feel like they're not alone is so impactful to me. And sometimes obviously I would love a cure for FSHD, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, if I didn't have FSHD, who knows if I could have done anything impactful in life. I mean, that sounds kind of sad, but it's just cool to be able to be a part of something big. And I think I think everyone should get involved if they can, or at least try to help spread awareness because it can help you accept yourself too and accept your FSHD diagnosis.
So, you said your scapular winging was sort of one of the first symptoms that you had. At what age did you get your scapular fusion surgery?
So I got my scapular fusion surgery in 2015 when I was 20 and then 21 or about to be 21. Um, so I got it 6 months apart. And when I was, younger, I had heard about it and my mom was going to do it, but it ended up like not being able to work for her. And my grandpa was a doctor and he was kind of researching about it. And he was like, I don't know if it's safe. I don't know if you should do it. But then he learned more about it and, it was more spoken about. And so he was like, I think you can do it now. It's a good idea if you want to do it. So I did it. And before I got the surgery, I was able to lift my arms up, pretty high. They would always fall down really quickly. And, I had the scapular winging, but I know that a lot of people aren't able to lift it past here. But before I had the surgery, I was able to lift it all the way up. Um, and then I got the surgery, and I'm still able to, lift it both arms up pretty high. It did limit my mobility a little bit because I can't, fully put my hands behind my head and like put it in a ponytail, which is it's too bad. But overall, like there was so many benefits to having the surgery that outweigh any of the negatives.
So, what was the recovery like? How long was the surgery? How long did it take you to like my son had a complete spinal fusion surgery, and
Yeah.
that was a huge surgery, and the recovery was really long.
Yeah.
But this isn't as invasive, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's what they do is they fuse your scapula bones to your rib cage, first with wires, and then over time it fuses together. And so when I got the surgery, I was in the hospital for like 2 days. Got home, definitely in a lot of pain. They gave me some pain meds for a few weeks. The first probably 2 weeks, it was a lot of pain. But then after then, it got a lot easier. The pain wasn't as bad. I was only, having to take at that point like a Tylenol or something. And I then had to do about like 6 months of physical therapy. It was a lot of physical therapy, but it's worth it because, it's crazy when you first get the surgery, your arm is stuck like here. And you do physical therapy to like work it higher and higher. And it's kind of scary at first. You kind of feel like, oh my God, is that all I'm gonna be able to do? But then through physical therapy, you're able to lift it all the way up. And so overall, like from doing the surgery to then feeling 100%, it's like about 6 months. But really, the first few weeks are the part where you're just going to be at home, not doing anything. After
And
that,
you got both of them done? at
yeah.
the
So I
same
got
time?
one. You can as soon as you can get is like 6 months apart, pretty much.
Okay.
So I got one done in May, and then the next one done in December.
So do
And
you feel like you wouldn't be able to lift your arm that high if you hadn't have gotten it?
probably not, because as you know, since my FSHD is progressing, like I'm sure it would have my arms, I wouldn't have been able to lift them as high anymore. I know that it was gonna get worse. It was only gonna get worse. So it was almost like preventative in a way, for me. But I know you can get it if you already can't like lift your arms very much. So for me, it was almost like preventative.
So I know Sam's had a few surgeries, and when he had like a tendon transfer and just the downtime, like not being as active, that was back when he could walk, he felt like he got a little bit worse because he wasn't
Mhm.
up and active. Did you feel like you progressed a little bit during that time and then you kind of built back up, or you don't feel like you lost
I
anything
think
in the recovery time?
I think during that time I probably did a little bit. I felt like that, but the thing you can do is you can still, do a stationary bike if you're able to do that. So it was only just not being able to use one arm, which I guess it depends on your level of FSHD and how well you're able to walk, or how well, are you able to get up from chairs yourself with one arm, which obviously can be pretty tough. For me back then, I was able to do a lot more. I mean, since then, it's gotten a lot worse for me. So if I were to get that nowadays, it'd be pretty difficult probably for probably like the first month, it'd be much harder than it was when I did it, back in 2015.
Heather, do you have any questions? Her daughter is going to get the surgery. And do you have any questions for Lexi?
Yes. Did you have a arm brace, like a solid one, or was it just fabric?
Mine was fabric. It was like a sling, and then it was pretty much a normal sling, but then there was like a block right here that
Okay.
they put in between to keep your arm kind of like out a little bit.
Okay.
And I think that's the best, like most non-invasive cast. I think the one thing that, maybe people used one that were more like sturdy because maybe they didn't want the person to move their arm. So like when you have the fabric sling, it's pretty easy to like move your arm, I guess. Whereas maybe they don't want you to move your arm because it could affect the fusing process.
Mm-hmm.
But it works great for me. I did it twice with that same sling, and it was super easy. I did have to sleep sitting up kind of for like maybe the first 3 weeks, which was a little tough. I just had like pillows, a bunch of pillows behind me, kind of almost like lounged back like this and slept, but
Yeah.
it was fine.
We have a recliner that'll be all set up, so
Oh, nice.
they'll find a way to get comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And then we're also worried about walking upstairs because, with one arm, you don't have
Right.
as much mobility in case, of falls. So we're going to make
Mhm.
sure she doesn't go up on any stairs while she
Yeah.
recovers, just to be paranoid, because I can't imagine falling
Yeah, it's a good idea.
on that.
Yeah, because you don't want to like in the first few weeks, you definitely don't want to fall because that could
Hmm.
affect the fusing. But after the first few weeks, it's pretty safe for the most part that it's already fused or
Mm.
Well,
close to it.
it gives you more motion. Does it also affect the winging? What else does it?
Yeah, so like I don't have any winging. I don't have any winging anymore. You can see like my back, like there's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I also, my shoulders like aren't like are pretty even, and they're set back, whereas like
Not
before,
hunched forward. Yeah.
yeah, they're not forward, which they were before. So it looks like it looks pretty like normal, quote unquote. um, and the only thing that doesn't look normal, obviously, is like I have pretty big scars on my back. So I have two big scars that go like kind of down the middle. I mean, they've they've gotten a lot better, obviously, and they're not like gross looking or anything. Like I really don't care about them. And then I have 2 at the bottom of my hips because that's where they took bone graft from. But I guess not everyone who does it has those 2. I guess it depends on your surgeon. But yeah, the scars, I guess, are the only part that if you don't like the look of scars, then
So
maybe
I
you'd be
know
upset.
you have to be careful when you have FSHD and you undergo anesthesia. And I know when my son had his surgeries, he had to go to a pulmonologist and make
Yeah.
sure he got his lungs tested. Did you have to do all that kind of stuff as well?
So when I got the surgery, like if I were doing it now, it'd be so different because I do have low pulmonary function now. Although I did have surgery twice in the last 6 months and I was fine with anesthesia, but they were precautious. They did take precautions for it. But they said I was totally fine during it and they didn't need to do anything. But yes, I mean, it is important to do that if there's any signs that you could have low pulmonary function, it is good to get checked with the doctor about that. And then like let the anesthesiologist know because then they have like different precautions for it. That's definitely important.
I remember once having surgery and my doctor had not informed, I guess, or the anesthesiologist didn't read, and the anesthesiologist delayed the surgery for an hour while
Oh, yeah.
while he researched.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's good that he did research, I
No,
guess.
I was impressed he did
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's good to like ahead of time to let them know, obviously.
So Lexi, do you think having the surgery has helped you maintain your independence and do the work that you do, like lifting the cameras and all the things?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely helps because without the surgery, it's so hard to tell because obviously it's also been so long now. It's been like 10 years since I did it, so I almost forget what it feels like to like not have this ability. But for me, the benefits outweigh the negatives. Like the negatives would be the scars. Sometimes if I'm sitting against like a hard chair, like say it's like a metal chair and my back's against it, sometimes it kind of hurts. Like I don't know if it's the wires kind of poking a little bit, but most of the time it's not an issue. I don't really know if there's many other
So
negatives.
the wires stay in.
Yeah, the wires do stay in unless you have an issue. Like I know someone who had it once. Their wires started poking into something and they had to get them removed. But they don't have to remove it if it's not an issue. So they never removed mine.
You have to carry a TSA card for the wires?
No, they don't go off. They don't go off. I get randomly selected a lot, and I don't know if that's because maybe it like
Shows.
maybe there's something that shows up, but it never actually goes off. And I do tell them like once they're like take me for random selection, I say, I have wires in my back. But it doesn't affect anything. Also, it doesn't affect, or at least I guess you got to make sure with your doctor, but I made sure with my doctor, the wires don't affect any MRI scans. So like I know certain metals could, interact with the magnets.
Mhm.
Luckily for me, that wasn't the case because I had to do some MRIs. So that didn't affect me at all, which is great.
That's a perfect segue because I was going to ask you about your involvement with you've done a trial with Fulcrum. You were in the Los Mapamod trial, and
Yeah.
they did have MRI and things like that, and it didn't interfere with any of that. The MRIs weren't fuzzy or anything.
No, it was not an issue.
So
Yeah.
can you talk to us a little bit about that experience being in the trial? And I know it's, Los Mapamod's been pulled, but just for anybody who may be going into a trial, kind of what they can expect. Because like I said, with your introduction, you've done it all, Lexi. You've advocated, you've been in trials, you've done everything you possibly can to advance treatment for FSHD.
And if I could add to Ali's question, just as an addition to her question, if reachable workspace is their biomarker, how does the surgery affect your ability to
Yeah.
be measured?
I was worried, like originally when I first said I wanted to do the Fulcrum trial, a few people were like, well, I don't know if you can do it with the surgery that you had because of reachable workspace, but they let me in and they knew I had it. So I don't know, hopefully it didn't like affect any of the results, but I mean, they knew I had it and they basically, well, I'll start from what the trials are. So did all like the testing for it with my doctor. I got into the trial, which was great. You know, you don't know if you're on a placebo or the real drug in the beginning. They do all these different tests in the beginning, like an MRIs in the beginning, blood work, ERG, just lots of questionnaires. It's like a long appointment in the beginning. And then, you know, you're officially selected and you're in it. And then I had to go to appointments, not that often. It was like, what, in the beginning, it was like every 4 weeks or something, every 5 weeks. And it was like an hour from me. You know, the location near me was an hour from me. So I would drive there. It was about like a 4-hour appointment because you had to do in the beginning, there was like blood work, like a urine sample, a bunch of questionnaires. The doctor comes in and he asks you all these questions. You know, every clinical trial might be different, but for me, asking all these questions, and obviously they gave me the drug, and I would take that every day, twice a day. And also during the appointment, I had to do like a physical therapy, or which the reachable workspace with a physical therapist. And yeah, I only had to do the MRI every so often. It wasn't like every time, it was every so often. And the reachable workspace was, you know, just this, you watch this video and you had to like move your arms a certain way. And I guess, you know, the strength I have to do it, it's not like I have like gained muscle with this surgery. I just, you know, some things were changed a little, but I still like my muscle is just like everyone else's. So if it were to work on me, I would assume like I'd be able to do it a little differently and maybe lift it higher or something. But yeah, it was a interesting experience. I did it for about 2 years or so. Yeah, because then I got on the real drug. I think I was on the placebo, honestly, at first. But yeah, and then it was canceled.
Well, you know, reachable workspace, from what I understand in the trials, you're measured against your baseline. So if you go there and you
Yeah.
can raise it this, you know, if it works, hopefully you can raise it up higher, whether you
Right.
have a fusion or not, I would assume,
Right.
right?
That's what I
Yeah,
assumed.
so I'm glad they let you in, and I'm glad it wasn't a disqualifier. So on that
Yeah.
in that same vein, I know that you've been advocating a lot and helping us a lot and advocating for the younger folks to get into trials, those that are wheelchair bound to get the treatments. So do you have anything on the horizon, or is there anything coming up, or anything you're working on that in that vein to further our cause to getting everybody into clinical trials and everybody a treatment? I know you have some conferences and stuff coming up, is that right?
Yeah, so I am going to like a Solve FSHD meeting and with the company, and we're going to be, you know, talking about clinical trials and all that. And we are doing a campaign about getting younger people into trials and older people into trials and wheelchair non-ambulatory people into trials. So that's definitely super important. And you know, we want to spread the message that everyone should be included into trials, because you know, if not everyone's included into trials, then there won't be treatments for those people who aren't included, and they won't get access to them. So you know, we're doing an I exist too type of campaign, where it's like I exist, you know, I exist too. Just because, you know, I'm able to get into a clinical trial doesn't mean my mom shouldn't be able to get into a clinical trial because my mom's in a wheelchair. So, you know, everyone exists and that we should all be able to be involved.
Lexi, if you're looking for people to help in any way, to volunteer,
Yeah.
count me on your list.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, Allie's involved in it all. And I think it'll be a really, really cool movement.
We will definitely, Dave. There's going to be more information coming out. There's going to be a whole campaign.
Okay.
We're hoping that, you know, we not only get the people that are affected by FSHD involved, but people who are not affected. You know, if they just have a coworker or a friend, or, you know, someone that they know
Yeah,
they have FSHD. Because
friends
when
and
you
family.
hear it, it sounds like this can't be the truth. It can't be the truth that just because you're under the age of 18, or just because you're over the age of 65 or 40 or 70, or just because you're non-ambulatory, that you cannot participate in clinical trials. And that would be all fine if at the end of the day, they would say, okay, so this narrow population is able to participate in a clinical trial, but then the drug will be available
Yeah.
to everybody. But that's not how the system works. The system works with, it's labeled for the people who are in the trial, and then insurance will only pay for it for those populations. So we're trying to get the label expanded so that everybody can have access to the treatment, and so that insurance will reimburse it. Because the system is just not set up in a way that is conducive for everybody to get the treatment, access to the treatment at the same time. And as you well know, and Lexi's said this a couple times, her FSHD is starting to progress more recently. We all know with our kids, a lot of them progress very rapidly. So you never know when you're going to start to progress. Right? You may be eligible for a trial this year, but next year you may not, because you may be in a wheelchair next year. I hope that's not the case, but people are losing ambulation, they're losing function, and in some cases people are losing their lives waiting for these treatments to trickle down to them, and that's just not acceptable. And Lexi is bringing her talents, she and her husband, because she knows how to do this, she's done this, to help us out, to spread the word that this is not acceptable. And we need to start now, before the trials are completed, so that we get our voices heard now, so that maybe trials will be more inclusive, and then maybe the FDA will hear us and grant a broader label, or insurance companies will pay for those treatments, because we all deserve a treatment, everybody with FSHD. And that's the I Exist Too, which is a really good. And you want to talk more about how that's gonna work, the more details about that, Lexi?
Yeah, so I mean, there'll be a few ways that everyone can help out. I mean, we're gonna have a petition, to get people to sign a petition so that we can show how many people want this to happen and how this is necessary for so many people. And then also we're gonna try to spread as much awareness around social media, and people with FSHD, people without FSHD, posting videos, or posting, if you don't want to post a video, posting a letter that can show why you exist too, and why you deserve to have a treatment as well. And it may not be you, but it may be talking about someone with FSHD that can't get into a trial. Maybe you can, but they can't. So, and then also reaching out to pharma companies and trying to let them know that this is important to us, and that we need to get this population of people involved into trials, because everyone, like Ali said, everyone deserves treatment.
And we should be launching this when, Lexi? Probably within the next month?
Yeah, hopefully.
You're waiting on me, I know. So I'm the holdup, but it will be soon.
Yeah, so it's exciting. Everyone get on social media.
Yeah.
If you're
So
not
spread the word. And we're gonna make this happen, and we're gonna make our voices heard. And that's how things are gonna get done, I think. So what advice would you give? Say there's a family that's newly diagnosed, maybe there's a few people in the family, and one of them happens to be a teen or a younger tween, a younger kid. What advice would you give them about growing up with FSHD?
I mean, my advice to a lot of people is to get involved. I think that in the beginning, if you're first diagnosed as a teenager, obviously it's going to be overwhelming and kind of maybe scary. And I think in the beginning, maybe getting used to it and adjusting, and maybe doing some research about it. I think in the beginning, taking it slow, but then when you're ready, I think it's so important to get involved. And I think it will make people feel so much better about themselves, knowing that they're able to help others. For me, I mean, it really just, it was the thing that drives me every day, is knowing that I am making a difference. When you have something that's like bigger than yourself, you feel like that you can make a difference. And I mean, that's I would hope that everyone felt positively about that, but I guess not everyone maybe wants to, maybe that's not what brings everyone joy, but it is something that can help a lot of people. I think also my advice is definitely to talk to other people with FSHD. You know, there might be some groups on Facebook that maybe, I know that some people don't like certain posts that come up, like maybe it's too sad to see certain posts, like, oh, is that what's going to happen to me in 15 years? Like, am I going to be doing that in 10 years or 5 years? And maybe it might be hard to see. But there are groups, like there's a young adults group that young kids, well, not young kids, but young adults 18 and up can get into and talk to people their age. I just think community is so important, because when you're alone and you're dealing with it alone, that's just not beneficial for your mental health. And I think it's so important to be surrounded by at least a few other people that know what you're going through, because if maybe your family, nobody has it, it can be tough because you're going through it all alone. Whereas you could go through it with people who understand what you're going through.
And what about parents? Would you give them similar advice? Like, what kind of things did your parents do for you that help support you, that, you know, while you're growing up?
Yeah, I think treating your kid like a normal kid is so important. Like, you know, you don't want your kid to feel like, nobody wants to feel like they're different than everyone else growing up. You know, I was actually just watching this show, like a reality type of show, where this mom, there was a mom that had twins. One of them had muscular dystrophy and one didn't. And the girl had a wheelchair that she used only in school. And there was like a separate entrance that was more accessible for her. And her mom was like, you need to go through that entrance because, you know, it's going to make it easier for you and whatever. But she didn't want to do that. She wanted to be like everyone else, and she wanted to go through the regular entrance. And you know, it might require more because she needed help from people to open the door, but she wanted to be like everyone else. And I think it is important to feel like you're like everyone else and be treated like you're everyone else. Obviously, you know, you want to be cautious because that could lead to, you know, if maybe certain things, it would cause them to fall if they went a certain way, where, you know, you want to be weary of that. But I think it's so important to treat your kid like everybody else and make them feel like they're like everyone else, but also encourage them to get involved and to communicate with others with FSHD. I think that's something that you want your kid to be able to do, is to not be alone and to connect with others. So I guess encouraging them to be a part of it if they want to, but if they don't want to, then I guess, you know, wait and see if someday they will. Because not every young kid wants to have to deal with that. They might want to just go about their life and pretend that that's not the part of their life. But
I find in my community, it's a big issue because there's,
mhm,
when people are newly diagnosed in particular, and I went through it myself, there's a long period of denial, or
right,
I'm okay, because I can still do, you know, early
yeah,
diagnosis, can still do most of the everything that I was able to do, just, you know, and then eventually it progresses. And one father told me recently in our community that he noticed his daughter spending a lot of time on Better Life.
mm,
And she's in denial to anybody that talks to her about it, but at least she's engaging,
yeah, that's
you
true.
know, and then maybe she'll engage further.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's engaging on he doesn't have FSHD, he's engaging on the community meetings.
Mm-hmm.
You should probably join this.
Yeah.
His daughter's 22, so she's not early onset anymore. I guess not early onset.
Yeah, but that's actually like good, you know, a good way to look at it. It's like maybe take small steps, you know, like joining Better Life. You are making a difference because you're getting your word out there, and you don't have to talk to anyone or, you know, I guess face other people with it if you don't want to. So
Right.
I think actually Better Life is a great way for people to do that. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully everyone knows about Better Life, but um, yeah, that's actually great.
It's only the US right now, so not.
Oh, yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Lexi?
Lexi, I just wanted to say that keep what you're doing. By the way, you were a lifesaver for me because we were very new into this FSHD, and the only videos that I could actually witness of people experiencing things was yourself. So keep doing what you're doing. You're absolutely brilliant, and thank God you did what you did, and you continue doing it. The only requirement that I would have so far is that there's a lot of hope out there. Everybody's preaching about solutions. I think it's time also to worldwide get together, understand exactly where the people are suffering from this. My experience with a lot of other countries is that there's just so many people out there fairly much alone, and
Yeah.
when the solutions come up, if they do, we need to know how to get to them. So I think registration is the number one, and thank God that FSHD Global here in Australia are doing something fantastic. They've just released it only a couple of days ago or so. But it's nice to see a combination of database that people can actually understand where the problems are, and most important is that be able to test people. I think that our family is one of the lucky ones that we found fairly quickly within a year. But there are people out there who still got it and they don't even know about it. And
Right.
this is, they don't know how to test. Blood test is very expensive in some countries than others, or impossible in some others, and whatever. It takes a long time. There are solutions out there, and we are speaking already about the other solutions, faster solutions that we can actually get to this much quicker, and at least, get on the road of knowing about what you can do with FSHD instead of kind of waiting for a long period of time, when you're 20 or 30 or whatever. I think the faster we know, the better it is. And it's also going to help other families with a combination of people who are about to get married, have kids, or what are they going to do about it if they have it and don't know about it. So that to me is very important. And what I see here is that, this can spread quite wild if we don't have a fast way of at least understanding, and getting through the testing. And like I said, I was one of the lucky ones that I found out in our family, where we're at, and that helps me a lot to direct where we want to be at. But it's important that we have a fast way of finding out who has got it and then where they are. And then I think the rest will come.
Yeah. No, it is true though. Like I speak from a viewpoint of like the United States, so it's tough to know what it's like in other countries, but it is important that when there is treatments that we make sure everyone around the world have access to them and are able to get them. I don't know how that all works, but that is important. It's a good point to bring up. And then also the genetic testing. It's definitely tough for a lot of people. It took me a bit to get it, but I think that's something that, a lot of people are working on, trying to make that easier.
But how long did it take you to get that genetic test, by the way? Just out of
Well,
curiosity.
I mean, I guess not that long compared to some people who have talked about how long it's taken them. When I was trying to get into the clinical trial, actually with Fulcrum, like 2 years before I was actually able to get into it, but I didn't get my genetic test in time because my doctor was terrible at the time and didn't help me. So it took me like close to a year maybe to like actually finally do it. But I know since then there's been, with the FSHD Society, for example, they've been trying to get more people to get genetic tests. Like my mom actually was able to get one through their program they were doing, where they were giving them or helping people get them easily. I don't know if they're doing that as much right now, but.
Right, and that's a good point. You have to have a genetic test to get into a clinical trial. Like, even if you're clinically diagnosed, you cannot join a clinical trial. So it's very important to get a genetic test. And like Lexi said, those things can take some time. So if a trial is opening up and you're eligible for it, that's not the time to try and go get a clinical test, because it'll take a year or two, and then the trial will close. They'll get all the folks that they need, and then you'll miss out. So you need to get tested now, and your kids, if you can. And I know, and Tony and I have talked about this, a lot of times, most times, they will not test your kids or test even adults if they're not presenting clinically. You know, that you have to have some symptoms, just because of the bureaucracy of ordering the test and insurance reimbursement. And so, you know, the sooner you can start that process, the better.
Why
And
does it take so long? I'm sorry, Al, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, it doesn't, like, I know not everyone it takes that long. Like, I know my sister actually was able to get it fairly quickly. It just depends on, it's hard to sometimes figure out where the location is near you, or
Okay.
sometimes it's just hard to find the information. And like, for
And then
me, it
find
was,
the right physician?
yeah, for me, it was
No,
hard
and-
to just find out where to get it. I mean, that was 2019. I feel like we've made a lot of progress since then, but.
right, and also just trying to navigate insurance for reimbursement, you know,
insurance,
that
yeah.
takes a long time, because, you know, insurance, they want to deny it, you know. So
Yeah,
they
well,
have to have some
20
justifications.
23 years ago when I had it, they just wouldn't cover it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think my sister actually ended up paying out of pocket, now that I think of it. Cause it just, yeah. Oh, cause she doesn't have symptoms. She had to do it because she was having a baby.
Right.
She wanted to make sure she didn't pass it down. So I guess maybe that's why they didn't cover it, or I don't know, but she paid out of pocket, which was like
Right.
I think it was a few
Yeah.
thousand.
I think there's just a lot of hoops to jump through with insurance. You know, the doctor has to justify the symptoms and all the things, which, like Tony said, it seems backwards. I mean, people need to know. They need to know to make life
Yeah.
decisions. And that's why, you know, the saliva test with Peter Jones is a good alternative to that.
Yeah.
And it's pretty reliable. We did have a question in the chat, Lexi. I think this person, Tyra, came in a little bit late. They wanted to know how long the surgery was, like how long was the physical surgery for your scapular fusion, and did you do both shoulders? And she answered that she did one, and then 6 weeks or 6 months later she did another one. But how long was the actual surgery?
Yeah, so the surgery was a few hours. Maybe it was like, I remember my parents saying it was kind of long, like maybe like 4 hours or something. It wasn't like a super quick surgery. And then you know, I was asleep during all of it, which was great. But I had recovery, like I was in the hospital for 2 days, and then I got to go home. And I was telling them earlier, like the recovery right after, it was like 2 weeks of a lot of pain, and then it got a lot better. I did like 6 months of physical therapy, and then I was pretty much back to normal after that. But
Will
if
you do it
you,
again, Alex, if you had to do it today?
yeah, I would do it again if I had to.
Yep.
I mean,
Okay.
it was honestly like it changed. That surgery for me changed my life, because for me, mainly my biggest in life, like when I was a teenager, the scapula winging was just something I was so insecure about at the time. You know, my shoulders, like I was just very insecure, and I wasn't able to wear certain things that I wanted to, or whatever. It might seem like minuscule, but then I got it done, and like my whole life changed. I feel like it was so impactful for me to be able to do that. It really changed a lot of my like confidence issues.
Thanks, Lexi, for answering my questions. And then the other thing I wanted to ask too was, were you not able to use your arm at all during the time that, I don't know if you mentioned it was like in a sling, or like after the surgery, like
Yeah, so
we're
I
going
was immediately after the surgery, I was in a sling. I woke up with a sling, and mine was a fabric sling. I was telling Heather there are certain slings that aren't fabric, whatever. It was a super simple fabric sling, and then I had like a square styrofoam thing in the middle here. That's what kind of kept my arm like this.
Yeah.
And the first maybe 2 weeks or so, or maybe 3 weeks, I couldn't move it at all. I was stuck like this basically. And then as I did physical therapy for like 6 months, I finally was able to, you know, like get my arm all the way up to here, and I can hold it up. Before the surgery, it would fall right down. So now I can hold it up. But yeah, it was, you couldn't move it for the first few weeks, and then physical therapy and everything, it got it back to normal-ish. You know, you'll never go back to exactly how you were before, the range of motion and everything, but it's much better than what I had before. I also had a very easy experience. Like I know some people do have some complications, but I guess that's with any surgery, really.
Right. Yeah, because it doesn't seem like when you said about like your shoulders kind of being like squared now, like as
Mhm.
opposed to like kind of rounded. Like I know when I go to like lift my arms because I can't anymore,
Mhm.
just like the pain like around like my neck because I'm using muscles that I shouldn't to do things
Right.
I shouldn't be. So yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to see what sort of limitations you would have with
Yeah.
having the surgery and how long that would last. So thank you.
Yeah, and I do think like this isn't gonna just for anyone. I don't know if they felt like this way, but it doesn't solve any pain issues unless you have maybe like scapula pain. I don't know, but like I still have a lot of pain here, like a lot right around my neck. And still, I think lifting the arms. I feel like this is why I'm pretty sure it's why we get pain here. It's just like lifting of the arms and the
Mhm.
weakness. So I still get all that. In case people were wondering if that helps, that it doesn't. Unfortunately, the
Good
pain
to know.
is, yeah,
Unfortunately, yeah.
yeah.
Any other questions for Lexi?
Oh, I just wanted to say, since we just got a consultation
Hmm.
with the surgeon, that we're only expecting her to be overnight at the hospital. So it's
Mhm.
not a 2-day stay like yours was. Hopefully not, anyway. Hopefully that means it's more advanced if it's shorter.
Yeah, that's true.
And also, we weren't recommended that they do bone grafts. And
Oh, okay, that's good.
yeah, so much easier.
Lucky.
I know. Yeah.
I know that was actually really painful too. Like I had the bone graft in my hips, and that was sometimes even like if you hit it a certain way, still it hurts.
Ooh,
So I'm glad that they don't have to do that. But
yeah.
And Heather, how was the insurance? How did you get reimbursement for all that? Was that a long process?
We're gonna have to face that because we got new insurance. And it's United Healthcare, which is not known to be very easy to go
Mhm.
towards. So we're gonna have to face that. But we're just hoping, clinically she needs it. She actually needs it to
Mhm.
function better. So it's gonna be hard for them to deny it, I think.
Yeah, mine was covered by insurance. I was still in my parents back then, but they never had any issues. I remember my mom saying she only paid like a few hundred out of pocket for the whole thing.
Great.
So hopefully that's helped the same for you. But
Yeah. Yeah, the doctor that we're going to see has done, I guess, like 100 of these. And when we asked that question, basically he said he was never denied. So it's
oh, nice.
not really
That's
an
good.
issue. So
Wait,
hopefully we'll have
what medical center, Heather? Did you say?
MGH, Mass General Hospital.
Oh, I didn't know
Okay.
you were. Oh, that's awesome. I had mine done at Brigham, but the doctor retired.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is Dr. El Hassan,
Oh, okay.
and we're super psyched because I guess he goes pretty much like all over the world doing these
Oh,
surgeries.
wow.
Like he goes to
Really?
Europe and does these exact surgeries there. And then they recruit him back to the US to do them here. So yeah, we're
That's
hopeful.
awesome. Well, you're good at MGH. So.
Yeah.
I'm curious if anyone knows, is there another diagnosis that leads people to have this surgery, or is it just an FSHD thing? I'm just surprised to hear about a doctor doing that many.
I know. I always wondered that too. But I haven't heard.
I'm sure
I mean, it's
there,
great to
I'm
have
sure
someone
there are
so
injuries to
experienced.
the scapula.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually never really
I guess
fully looked
some
into
other, scapular stabilizer paralysis, I guess, but it doesn't seem like some of the other muscular dystrophies affect the scapula like this, but.
Yeah, I mean, if you look it up just online, it's only talking about FSHD.
Huh.
So
Oh,
I
really?
wonder.
Yeah, how would you do
But-
so many?
Yeah, I don't know. It's great to have someone so experienced though.
Yeah, well, if there's 1 million people with FSHD in the world, 100 of them, that's not that many.
Yeah. Well, actually, a girl that I met through, this community, she actually got surgery, the same exact surgery I did at the same hospital the day after or the day before I did. And we met for dinner like a few days before. But so yeah, that's 2 in like 1 weekend. So I guess maybe that makes sense to do 100. They're doing 2 in a week. Probably maybe more than that. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, 100 like might seem small for other surgeries, but for this surgery. It's
Well,
a lot.
there are other things that cause, I'm just looking up now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, fibrosis, obviously muscle atrophy,
Mm.
glenohumeral joint dysfunction.
Oh, okay. So I guess it's done for other people.
Yeah.
So,
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Heather, is your daughter having them both done at the same time, or is she doing one at a time also?
So you can't do them both at the same time. No doctor will do it. So
Okay,
it's the first time, and so she's getting the one that is the most pronounced, which is the right side.
okay.
Mm,
And
that's
then
what
do
I
they
heard, yeah.
recommend waiting and seeing if she needs this other one done, or?
Yeah, so he said just see how this goes, and she doesn't have to do the left one if she doesn't want to, but down the line she can.
Mhm.
Okay,
And then
thank you.
one other thing I wanted to bring up was during the consultation, he actually manually checked the muscle of the pecs.
Mm.
And I learned that if you didn't have enough pec muscle, that she might not qualify.
Yeah.
I think is kind of scary, because if you were waiting too long to do the surgery, you might not
Mhm.
qualify. So I'm glad we saw
Yeah.
him when we can.
Yeah, I knew my mom was not like she wasn't able to do it for maybe it was that reason, I don't know, but
Oh,
luckily I was able to do it. But she was, at the time she wanted to do it, she was like maybe 50 or 40 something. And yeah, she wasn't able to do it. But I will say if you do, at least for me, when I had one surgery done and not the other, like during that 6-month period, my shoulders were like very slanted. So I will say, like, I don't know if that's gonna happen, but it was something that for me I was like, whoa, that's because it was like it looked like this. So it was once I had both, then it was like even.
Well, that's really good information. Thanks for bringing that up, Heather. I never would have thought about like you can get too far gone and have too little muscle to do it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So thanks for bringing that up. Any other last minute questions for Lexi?
I do have actually one comment for anyone whose child is doing the surgery, or if you do the surgery. During recovery, there might be times where you feel like, oh my God, did I just like rip it and did I just screw it up? As long as you're, following the directions, you're not doing anything crazy, it's going to be fine. There were times where I felt like something happened. I was like, what if a wire just poked me? It just felt like something crazy happened back there, but nothing ever happened, which was great. So as long as you're not like, there's no crazy falls. Like, and there was times where I banged my elbow and I was totally fine. So I wouldn't get too much anxiety about, because I know like there was when the other girl was going through it with me, she was like, oh my God, I felt like I just ripped it out. Like, did something happen? And I was telling her I felt the same and it was all good. So just some advice. Don't get too stressed out if something like that happens.
That's good advice. Sam was the same way with his spinal fusion. He's
Really?
like, oh, I broke a screw. I know
Yeah.
it's broken. Everything.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, no, it's fine. Like you really
Yeah.
have to do something major to
Right.
break it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's good comment. So any parting words, Lexi, you have any anything you want to add either about the surgery or just anything about the future for treatments or for kids that you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I mean, obviously FSHD is tough to live with. It's tough on your mental health. I think it's important if your kid is ever dealing with serious mental health issues that like something like therapy can be really helpful. Talking to other kids is really helpful with it. Yeah, I mean, I'm very hopeful for a treatment soon. I know like when I was first diagnosed, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate, there wasn't much going on. Like they had recently like found out what caused it, and they're just like they didn't know much back then. Not that it was like crazy long ago, but probably like 20 years ago. And now, just in the last 5-10 years, I've seen so much progress with research, and I think it's awesome. And so I'm really excited. I'm hopeful, and hopefully we can get everyone treatment, not just, people between the ages of 18 and 65 and ambulatory. Hopefully we can get everyone a treatment. So just
look
keep
out for
spreading
the
awareness. Yeah. And look out for I Exist Too and our movement.
sign up for Better Life, look out for I Exist Too, and join the movement.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for coming. Lexi, I appreciate your time so much.
Thank you.
You've got great insights and given us some really good firsthand
Mhm.
accounts of not only the surgery, but growing up with this. And you're a great role model for everybody growing up with it and everybody living with it. So keep, like Tony said, keep
Absolutely.
doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
guys.
much.
Great
Absolutely.
to meet everyone.
You too.
Have a good night.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Lexi. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.